In the heart of Hungary, Kaktus Castle looms a fortress with secrets darker than its stone walls. Its most infamous resident, Countess Erzsébet Báthory, is remembered not for her nobility, but for chilling allegations of cruelty. Born into immense power and privilege, Erzsébet's legacy is defined by accusations that blurred the line between fact and legend. Was she a monstrous killer, or a victim of political intrigue? The truth remains tangled in myth and history. Today, we journey back to uncover the facts, the legends, and the enduring mystery of the Blood Countess. Her story is a haunting echo from a distant, darker past. Erzsébet Báthory, a name that echoes through the corridors of history, was born in 1560. Her arrival into the world was not a quiet one, but rather a grand entrance onto a stage already set with power, prestige, and ancient lineage. The year of her birth marks the beginning of a life that would become synonymous with both immense privilege and unspeakable horror. She was born into one of Hungary's most powerful families, a lineage intertwined with the very fabric of the kingdom. Surrounded by privilege and influence from her earliest days, Erzsébet's destiny was seemingly preordained. Her family's vast wealth and political connections cast a long shadow, shaping her world and setting her apart from the common folk. The Báthorys were not merely nobles, they were kingmakers, strategists, and warriors, their name whispered with respect and at times fear. Her marriage to Count Ferenc Nadasdy was more than a union of love. It was a strategic alliance, a calculated move that united two powerful dynasties. This joining of houses solidified their collective influence, creating a force to be reckoned with in the Hungarian political landscape. This union granted her control over vast estates, sprawling lands that stretched as far as the eye could see, and thousands of subjects bound to her will. These were not just properties, they were sources of immense wealth and power, providing her with the resources to command armies, influence policy, and live a life of unparalleled luxury. The lives of those who toiled on her lands were inextricably linked to her decisions, their fates hanging in the balance of her whims. While her husband was often away, engaged in the endless conflicts and power struggles of the era, Erzsébet ruled her domains with absolute authority. She was not merely a figurehead or a placeholder. Her word was law, her decisions final. She oversaw every aspect of her estates, from the collection of taxes to the administration of justice, wielding power with a firm hand and an unwavering resolve. In this feudal world, noble privilege meant near total autonomy. The walls of her castle were not just physical barriers, they were shields against scrutiny, allowing abuses to go unchecked, hidden from the eyes of the outside world. Within those walls, a different set of rules applied, where the whims of the powerful could easily become the suffering of the powerless. After her husband's death, Erzsébet became one of the kingdom's wealthiest, most independent women. No longer bound by the constraints of marriage, she possessed unprecedented control over her vast fortune and extensive lands. This newfound freedom, however, came at a price, as it also made her a target for those who sought to exploit her wealth and undermine her power. It was then, in the aftermath of her husband's passing, that whispers began to circulate, dark rumors of missing girls and cruel punishments that echoed through the villages and spread beyond the castle walls. These were not idle tales, they were accounts of unspeakable acts, of young women disappearing without a trace, and of brutal tortures inflicted upon those who dared to defy her. As whispers grew into accusations fueled by fear and suspicion, the stage was set for a confrontation that would shake the very foundations of the Hungarian nobility. The rumors had reached the ears of those in power, and the weight of their scrutiny began to bear down upon Erzsébet, threatening to expose the dark secrets hidden within her castle walls. The power that once protected her, the privilege that had shielded her from accountability, would soon become the focus of her downfall. The very system that had elevated her to such heights was now poised to condemn her, as the accusations against her threatened to unravel her carefully constructed world and expose the darkness that lay beneath. The most shocking aspect of the Báthory case, the detail that truly sets it apart from other historical accounts of cruelty and abuse, is the alleged number of victims. We're not talking about a handful of unfortunate souls. Some accounts claim the number reached over 650 young women. This staggering figure, if true, would make her one of history's most prolific serial killers, dwarfing even the most notorious names. Testimonies gathered from servants, local villagers, and even members of the nobility painted a disturbing picture of systematic cruelty and calculated abuse. These weren't isolated incidents of mistreatment, they described a pattern of torture, imprisonment, and murder. The numbers cited in these testimonies were so high, so unbelievable, that they often defied belief, leading many to question their veracity. Yet, the sheer volume of accounts cannot be easily dismissed. The infamous diary, purportedly belonging to Erzsébet Báthory herself, listing hundreds of names of young women, their dates of disappearance, and details of alleged tortures, has become a central piece of the legend. While its authenticity has been debated by historians for centuries, the diary's existence, whether real or fabricated, has significantly contributed to the enduring image of Báthory as a bloodthirsty monster. The numbers within may have been exaggerated, inflated for political or sensational purposes, but even conservative estimates, those that attempt to account for potential biases and inaccuracies in the historical record, are chilling. Even if we reduce the number to 100, or even just a few dozen, the scale of the alleged crimes remains horrifying. The official court records, while incomplete, still point to a significant number of missing and murdered young women in the region surrounding Kaktic Castle. In an era without the benefits of modern forensic science, where DNA analysis and crime scene investigation were non-existent, evidence relied heavily on witness accounts. However, these accounts were often gathered under duress, through coercion, or with the promise of reward, raising serious questions about their reliability. Fear of retribution from Báthory and her powerful family could have silenced some, while others might have been motivated by personal gain or political agendas to exaggerate or fabricate their testimonies. Whether the true number of victims was dozens, 100, or the legendary 650, the undeniable fact remains that a significant number of young women disappeared or died under suspicious circumstances in the vicinity of Erzsébet Báthory's castle. The lack of precise figures only adds to the mystery and the horror surrounding her story. The sheer scale of the accusations, regardless of their absolute accuracy, transformed Erzsébet Báthory from a noblewoman into a figure of mythic horror, a symbol of female cruelty and aristocratic excess. The image of the Blood Countess bathing in the blood of virgins to maintain her youth has become deeply ingrained in popular culture. The legend of the Blood Countess endures, captivating and horrifying audiences for centuries. This enduring fascination is fueled in large part by the staggering scope of her alleged crimes, the sheer audacity of her supposed actions, and the enduring mystery surrounding the truth of her story. The historical accounts blend with folklore, creating a potent and unforgettable narrative. The truth, the definitive answer to the question of how many victims truly suffered at the hands of Erzsébet Báthory, remains buried in the ruins of Kaktic Castle, lost to the mists of time. It's a truth that may never be fully known, forever shrouded in speculation, legend, and the chilling echoes of the past. Erzsébet's alleged victims were almost all young women, their lives just beginning, their futures full of promise. Little did they know the darkness that awaited them within the walls of Kaktic Castle. Servants and peasant girls often lured from their humble villages by the promise of a better life, a chance to escape poverty and find security within the countess's household. They dreamed of fine clothes, plentiful food, and a life free from the back-breaking labor of the fields. Once inside the castle, the illusion of opportunity quickly shattered. They were isolated, cut off from their families and communities, their hopes replaced by a chilling reality. The imposing stone walls became their prison, the grand halls their cage, and entirely at the mercy of their mistress, Countess Erzsébet Báthory. Her whims were law, her cruelty boundless. The young women found themselves trapped in a nightmare, their vulnerability exploited in the most horrific ways imaginable. Disappearances were easily explained away in that era. A runaway servant, a sudden illness, a tragic accident, all plausible excuses in a time when communication was slow and thorough investigations were rare, and families, particularly those of the peasantry, had little recourse against a noblewoman's authority. Challenging the countess was unthinkable, a dangerous act of defiance that could bring swift and severe retribution upon themselves and their loved ones. Their silence was born of fear and powerlessness. As local families grew wary, whispering tales of missing daughters and unexplained deaths, Báthory's circle allegedly began seeking victims from further afield, expanding their reach into neighboring villages and distant estates. Even among the lesser nobility, young women were not safe. The countess's depravity knew no bounds, and her thirst for blood seemed insatiable, driving her to target even those of higher social standing. This shift proved fatal. It was a miscalculation that would ultimately lead to her downfall. The disappearance of noble-born girls could not be ignored. Their families possessed influence and connections that the peasantry lacked. Their cries for justice would be heard. Their families had influence and their complaints reached the highest authorities, including the royal court and powerful figures within the Hungarian aristocracy. The wheels of justice, though slow, began to turn. The investigation that followed was inevitable, a consequence of Báthory's escalating crimes and the growing chorus of voices demanding answers. The truth, long hidden behind a veil of privilege and fear, was about to be exposed. As the suffering of the powerless finally pierced the walls of privilege, the Countess's reign of terror began to crumble. The cries of the victims, silenced for so long, echoed through the halls of power, demanding retribution. The Countess's predation on the vulnerable, her systematic abuse and murder of countless young women, would become her undoing, sealing her fate and forever staining her name in the annals of history. The castle's secrets, buried deep within its stone walls and hidden behind a facade of nobility, could no longer be contained. The truth was about to be unleashed, revealing the horrors that had transpired within its gates. The most enduring myth is that Báthory bathed in the blood of virgins to preserve her youth. This sensational tale, absent from original testimonies, emerged over a century after her death. The real charges focused on brutal punishments, not blood rituals. Yet the legend persists, a metaphor for the exploitation of youth by the powerful. Fact or fiction, the bloodbath myth cements her place as one of history's most notorious figures. For years, Erzsébet's noble status shielded her from justice. Local officials feared her power and even the king owed her family money. Accusing a Báthory was dangerous, her influence extended to the highest levels. Only when noble-born girls vanished did pressure mount for action. The investigation was handled discreetly to avoid scandal, but the shield of privilege was finally pierced. Her status, once her greatest protection, now shaped the peculiar justice she would face. The aristocracy's reluctance to act revealed the limits of power and the cost of silence. When authorities raided Kaktish Castle, they found evidence deemed damning. Her commoner accomplices were executed, but Erzsébet, a noble, was spared public trial and death. To avoid scandal, she was walled up in her own castle, condemned to solitary confinement. For nearly 4 years, she lived in darkness, cut off from the world she once ruled. In 1614, she died alone, her punishment as grim as any execution. The aristocracy preserved its honor, but at the cost of true justice. Her end was as shrouded in secrecy as her alleged crimes. The Blood Countess vanished into legend, her fate sealed within the castle walls. After Báthory's death, her family suppressed the scandal, sealing records and dividing her estates. Kaktish Castle fell into ruin, but the villagers kept her story alive through whispered tales. For generations her name was forbidden, yet the legend endured in local folklore centuries later. Historians uncovered the hidden documents, reigniting fascination with her case today. The ruins draw visitors seeking the truth behind the myth. The silence has lifted, replaced by debate and curiosity. The stones of Kaktishi still echo with the Countess's chilling legacy. Erzsébet Báthory's story straddles the line between history and legend. The facts are chilling, a powerful woman accused of systematic cruelty, shielded by privilege. Over time, myth transformed her into the archetype of the female vampire, a symbol of vanity and predation. Historians still debate her guilt, questioning whether she was a monster or a victim of conspiracy. For the world, she remains the Blood Countess, inspiring countless works of art and horror. Her tale reminds us that history's shadows are long, and truth is often elusive. The legend of Kaktish Castle endures, haunting us to this day.